Today on the Savage Goose Show, we're going to talk about what is happening for Savage Worlds in 2026. Both what do we know, and also some of my own predictions on what I think might happen based on some information I have seen in the past. But first, as always on this show, we're going to talk about the newsletter. So we will switch over to that. First things is the Deadlands Dark Ages PDFs are now available on Drive Through RPG. If you did not get the PDFs through the Kickstarter or didn't get them from the website or anything, you can now get them on Drive Through RPG. They are all available for you. They're the art tip cards, the Merlin's Champions, and the Deadlands Dark Ages book, as well as the special Deadlands Dark Ages cover for the player's book. So if you're, I personally got that because I think it looks sick. The only thing about it, I think it's like a little bit different than I feel some of the other ones. And I can go a little bit more wide, but I think it looks awesome. So if you're looking for those PDFs, you can go get those now over on Drive Through RPG. Moving on, the Doomguard RPG and R-Type PDFs are also now available. If you are looking to get the Doomguard supplement for your Necessary Evil game and you want to play as some Doomguard people inside Necessary Evil, you can now do that with this book. You can get the PDF over under the RPG. Hopefully we should get this shipment of this product sometime this summer. You can also get the art type cards as well to get your own supers you can play in your Necessary Evil game or what have you. So look forward to that. And you can just go get that over at Drive Through RPG. I'll try to remember to get some links down below for this stuff. ETU is on sale all week long on Fantasy Grounds and on Steam. So Fantasy Grounds you can get through Steam, and therefore you can purchase everything like as DLC for Fantasy Grounds through Steam. So that is now available that way. Usually I'd be a little bit hesitant about buying things like that through platforms like Steam or not platforms like Steam, but like Fantasy Grounds stuff. But because it's through Steam, I definitely have a lot more positivity about it because Steam is something that does not feel like it's going to be going away anytime soon. So if you are interested in getting the East Texas University content for Fantasy Grounds, you can check that out. Again, it is 20% off on Steam and Fantasy Grounds. It is new Game Master month. It is live, and they are looking for some new GMs. The new Game Master month is an annual month-long January seminar designed to get new GMs up and running by February. They are one of 10 Pinnacles who have 10 game companies that are taking part, and there's our system, Savage Worlds is a feature system, not our world, you know what I mean. It's organized by the good friends over at Monica Games. The new Gamester month gives you what you need to run your first game, inspiration, advice, and step-by-step process. The guides prospective GMs up to and through their first adventures. So if you're interested in trying to become a game master, you should check this out. There is a Discord server that is, I've seen some more discussion going on in that Discord server more recently in the past week. There's also a Facebook group and also a website you can check out as well. So if you want to learn how to play Savage Worlds, it's a good opportunity to do so. If you know someone who should learn to play Savage Worlds or should GM Savage Worlds, this is also a good opportunity for that as well. And with that, I do want to add one more piece of news that was not in here, and it wasn't in last week's either. I don't know why, but Savage Rifts Con is happening this weekend. So if you want to play some Savage Worlds or some Savage Rifts even, that convention is going on right now. Not right now, but it's happening this weekend, I should say. It's happening this weekend. Go check it out. Give some support. I know most of the games that are filled up, but go check it out if there's any games that are available and you can play. Go look into it. Unfortunately, my weekend filled up. I don't think I'm gonna be able to play this weekend, which I'm a little sad about. But we'll see. But go ahead and check that out. I highly recommend taking a look at that and seeing if you can participate in that. I don't know why they haven't been promoting that on the newsletter this past 2 weeks, because they did a couple, I think 3 weeks ago, but they haven't mentioned it these past 2 weeks, which just seems off to me. So, but either way, go check that out. For crowdfunding reports, Rift Europa is at the warehouse, so those pallets should be being prepared. Bottle Northwest International pallets are also with partners. Canada should be starting soon. Deadlands Lost Colony, Mad World is at the warehouse, and international pallets are being prepared. I did get my message saying that my shipment, my label through FedEx, has been made for Lost Colony, so that's exciting for me because I'm getting everything. So maybe a nice big unboxing. I'll probably try to do an unboxing of that at some point, and like a live stream where you can just hang out while I unbox stuff. The Doomguard files are delivered, and the pledge manager is open if you want to pre-order. Same with Dark Ages and Pathfinder Carrying Crown feedback has closed. So if you have find a mistake, that's too late. Sorry. But yeah. So all of that being said, let's go ahead and transition back to our PowerPoint and go on to the next thing. Next thing we have is new products. There's like several different. Every week, there's usually a decent amount of new products that come through, and I have to basically like curate the list to the things I think are interesting. If I ever miss one that you think is interesting and you have good reason to think so, leave me a comment and let me know. Hey, you didn't mention this one. Can you should mention it for XX reason, and I'm happy to do so. Generally speaking, when I'm looking at this, I'm just kind of looking at them, seeing which ones I think look just higher quality or more interesting, or I know the authors or something, and I pull out those ones. This week, these were the ones I pulled out from the from the it's a little bit bigger. There we go. From the SWAG, the Savage Worlds Adventurers Guild. We have Night of the Blood Monkey, a superhero adventure for Savage Worlds, which I thought sounded fun. A nice little superhero swag adventure. So get your either necessary evil stuff or just the superhero's companion, and a nice little adventure for that. The next one, this is a one that was kickstarted a while ago, and the product is now up for sale as like the core rulebook. This is Dust We Inherit core rulebook. It's a science fiction game inside for Savage Worlds, set in like the distant future after Earth is gone and everything, but everything's like broken and a lot of stuff happening with humanity spread across the universe and trying to figure out where our place in it is. So fun little game there. And the last one, this one looked interesting to me, but I don't know too much about it. And it's called Rules for Engagement, and it's part of the Four Horsemen Universe role-playing game, which I honestly don't know anything about. Now, this is a licensed product, and it is coming from Factory Boss Games. So it reminds me a lot of Battle Lords, but maybe a little more Earth-centered or maybe less spacey. There's still like that idea of like mechs and everything. You have your Casper armor, you have aliens and hardware and stuff, but it seems more based on just like a general vibe I'm getting, maybe a little more on Earth, more Gundam on Earth, or Gundam Wing rather than like the Gundam X or all that. So that's just my general like vibes I'm getting. I don't know if that's what it's like. But I also get a sense that sounds a little bit like Battle Lords, if you remember that. I'm sure they have their own distinct universe. And it's very probably different in some ways. I just don't know much about it. But it looked interesting. I want to make sure that you're aware that it is out. And it's a hefty book too, at 319 pages. So yeah, check that out if you are interested. So Kickstarters. We are starting to get ramped up into Kickstarters. A few have already started. We are still expecting quite a few for Kickstarters for third-party publishers. I don't think we have any dates yet or any expectations for necessarily when the next Kickstarter is happening for Pinnacle. I imagine there'll be one announcement sometime soon. But we'll go and just go over the ones that are coming up for third-party publishers. Currently going on is Starbreaker Saints and Sinners, the complete audiobook, and with some bundle options. This ends on January 30th. If you are wanting to get into Starbreaker as a sci-fi setting for Savage Worlds, I think it's a really well done one. The art's really well done as well. You can now get an audiobook. And I am liking this trend of having audiobooks for our RPG books. I think that's really helpful. I realize I'm wearing my headphones, so there's no reason for me to, because I'm going to take these off so they're not as uncomfortable. Usually I try to leave those for when people are on stream. Anyway, so if you are interested in Starbreaker, Saints and Sinners, the audiobook and the other bundle options are available. Go and check the link down below for that. Starbeards has started as of today. This is a setting that we talked about with the creators from Pinnacle Games a couple months ago at this point. The project got a bit delayed, but it is now going on. If you want to get and play as a dwarf, as a member of Damn It, you can now do that. You can become a space miner dwarf, and you can take a look at that Kickstarter down below as well. So, and if you want to learn more about the setting, you can definitely go watch our previous live stream where we did talk about it. I'll try to remember to link it either as a card or something down below, although I know I have not been doing the best job of that, but hopefully I'll remember this time. We'll see. Occult City, coming January 26th, so sometime this month. This is a pulp superhero horror role-playing game using Savage Worlds, and it's coming from Doghouse Rules, the people who make things like where is it? It's up there. Sidewinder Recoiled, which is a Western, like standard Western game, not Weird West, just a standard Western game, but also games like Dust Bunnies. We'll talk a little bit more about Dust Bunnies later. So they got quite a bit of a range of games that they've done, and I think the art for this one looks really sick. I definitely think about things like uh, the things like just not Justice League, but like things like the Justice League. There was like I had like Constantine and stuff. So yeah, things like I'm thinking like Constantine type world for Savage Worlds. That sounds quite fun to me. So I'm looking forward to this. It looks sick. It looks like it is in like a modern era, just with like more of a cult type superheroes. Coming in early 2026 is going to be Vermilion, Outlaw Girls, and Cannibal Elves for the setting for Vermilion. This is going to be an adventure, if it's anything like the previous ones, it'll be a sandbox adventure that you can just kind of like put your characters into and let them explore and let them go on different quests and everything, and explore the world of Vermilion. I'm currently running through the Sick and the Dead adventure right now, and I'm quite enjoying it. We've got 2 sessions in our belt. We'll have our 3rd session this week, and I think the players are finally getting a feel for like what Vermilion is like. They definitely struggle with the fact that most of them are outsiders in both the sense of like the setting rule, but on top of that, on top of the like the penalties for the setting rule of being outsiders, the strangers in a strange world, they're also outsiders on top of that as additional hindrances, and they just can't make anybody happy. So they're struggling a little bit with that, but I think they're getting through it. They'll be okay. Coming in 2026, Phase World, a Rifts Dimension Savage setting. This was originally slated for last year, but it got delayed. So we're looking forward to seeing that. We will have the creator of the Savage Worlds version of the setting for a live stream sometime, hopefully in the next couple of months. We'll see if we can get that nailed down, but we'll hopefully have Brandon on to talk about Phase World, which is going to be part of the part of the larger Rift setting. So look forward to that. So it's going to be like a Rift setting that's not being done by Pinnacle, but is being done through for Savage Worlds. So that's it's a unique angle on that. All right, this month's licensee spotlight is Dust Bunnies. This is a licensed product from Doghouse Rules, where you play as these little dust bunnies who are under the couch. The general vibe that I get from this is playing in like one of those kids TV shows like Smurfs or other shows like in that like general like era and general vibe of like target audience and stuff. Because in this game, you're not really fighting anybody. You do things called what they call trickses, which is like the closest thing that comes to like fighting. But it's generally like this like fun loving, like you can be tricksy and all that, but there's not really violence, right? There's violent light things, there is combat type things, you can defend yourself from things attacking you, but there's no fear really of like death or fear of like having to be attacked or anything, except that except for in that you are that you generally get from that kind of vibe of things, and more like what you're going to lean into. They do talk about how there is fear in this. You do use fear, but there's its own fear table, because the fear table in, say, like the core rulebook or in the horror companion is going to be very different vibe from the kind of fear that you're going for these little creatures. Imagine like Smurfs, like fear. It's like they're not going to like die from it or like gain maybe like a major phobia or anything, but they are going to have like a little like running away or something. And that's a kind of thing that you can find in this book. And really what I think I've learned from this, like reading through this book, is just like learning new ways, or new ways to kind of go about things for playing with kids, either kids or with people who just aren't really interested in doing a lot of combat, who aren't interested necessarily in like being much very tactical. They want to spend more time being happy go lucky, and playing more young child TV shows from the 80s and 90s than trying to play something gritty and hardcore. Like I said, this is coming from the people who did Sidewinder Recoiled, and it is coming from the people who also are doing the Occult City. So these are people who are have experience writing stuff and who have a lot of range. There's other products they've been as well, but I just want to call that out and take a look at this game. We'll be spotlighting this game all month. I think there's actually so I'll try to highlight some more features next week, and we'll you have any questions, please ask. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you have about this. And if I can't answer it, we can ask the team when they're on to talk about Cult City. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Savage Worlds in 2026. We're going about what we know is happening this year and some predictions about what's happening based on some of the things they've said and some of the things that they've like talked about in the past. But before we do that, I do want to look at your comments. What are you guys excited for in 2026? John Doom says that he's looking forward to more Han cluster and receiving some shipments from Pinnacle. Yeah, like I said, I'm waiting for my shipment from for Lost World, for Deadlands Lost Colony, and ETU2. I am also very excited for ETU2. ETU2. I'm gonna call it ETU Fresh Blood because I think that's the code name they're going with, but I think that's exactly what I'm hoping for. That sounds like a good name, I guess. Is what I'm gonna say. We'll talk about my predictions for that, but I am also pretty excited to see an updated version of ETU for Savage Worlds. Deadlands 30th stuff. Yep, looking forward to that. Vingle says I'm looking forward to the Robotech Omnibus. Yeah, like I got an update like today about that. I'm still going, hey, there was no update about the Savage Worlds part of the Kickstarter. So that being said, every time I look at the comments, I'm like, all these comments are about the Savage Worlds version. So it seems like a lot of people were just getting the Savage Worlds version. Hopefully that means a good sign for Robotech to really kind of push Savage Worlds version of the RPG more. Vincle says if they do a full rulebook SWADE Deadlands 30th, that would be good. That would be pretty sweet. Definitely, I think it would also be a good test to see if that is a good way to go going forward. We talked about this a little bit last week, or a couple weeks ago, maybe. I think it was like last week and the week before, and Landauer was in the chat talking about some things we were saying and saying, hey, some of this stuff is coming. So I hope that is something that they are going to try to do. A full rule book that has the SWADE rules and Deadland rules all combined to one, so they can sell as like one product to people. And I do think that would be, like I said, I think it'd be a good test case to see if people want that. See if that's what the market wants. So we'll see. Hail. I'm not sure what Hail is. Let me know. ET2. More fans waiting for EBU2. More stuff from Robotech. That's great. Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump in. And we're going to get started with talking about. Yeah, here's that. Made some changes and apparently didn't save over. There we go. Always getting. All right. First up, let's talk about. We're going to save Deadlands to the end because Deadlands is the largest piece. I'm going to try to get through all this other stuff first, and we'll talk about Deadlands because there's a lot of things going on for Deadlands this year. So, what do we know about Pathfinder and what's going on with Pathfinder this year? Well, the first thing that we know is that there is going to be a new adventure path. And that adventure path is going to be for Kingmaker. It's my notes down here. There we go. So yeah, so we know that it's going to be Kingmaker and everything. And so that's what we know is going to happen. It's going to be a big box set. We've seen these for other things. We've got Carrying Crown, we've got Crimson Throne, we've got Rajan Lords. So what's going to be different though? I think there's going to be something different with Kingmaker that has to be different because of the way Kingmaker is run. So the prediction is that I think because of the way Kingmaker works, based on my research and my understanding of like how Kingmaker is, I haven't ran it myself. But Kingmaker is, from my understanding, a very unique adventure path when it comes to the Pathfinder world, because it has a lot more exploration, focus on exploration, mapping, and like building up territory essentially than it does on linear dungeon crawling. So because of that, there's likely going to be some level of I'm thinking like some sort of level like hex crawl or domain management. We have the rules for strongholds inside of the Fantasy Companion, so maybe we're going to take the Fantasy Companion's rules for strongholds and adapt them more so for Kingmaker. I think because of the setting kind of also wants you to do more political intrigue type stuff. There might be some more rules around political intrigue, or on social conflicts with dramatic tasks or whatever. And so I think that's one of the things we can expect. Maybe some more mass battle rules as well, some more usage of that. So I think the mass battle rules is something that I don't think people use a whole lot, but we could definitely use a lot more of. So that's the kind of things I expect to see, and try to like avoid any complexity with Savage Worlds and Pinnacles, like making things complicated. So hopefully it basically takes Pathfinder Kingmaker and makes it simpler. All right. I also think that Kingmaker will likely be because of all of that, Kingmaker will likely be a larger box set than the previous campaign box sets, just because of the nature of everything. Because I expect there's gonna be more, like I said, there's likely gonna be more things in it than just like the books. We did have handouts in the other ones, but I just have a feeling that there's gonna be like additional stuff in the box set that's gonna help along with that, like keeping track of everything, maybe like a hex grid or something. So yeah, we'll see. And maybe more cards as well, like more like enemy cards and stuff. So yeah, I think this is gonna be like a fairly large box set for an adventure path compared to the previous work. By the way, if you guys disagree with any of the things I'm saying or have your own insights, please leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to read them off and see what you think. So if you have any comments about Pathfinder, just let me know. Next up is Rifts. So what we know is that there's going to be another Rifts Kickstarter this year, and it'll be for Ends of the Earth, which will cover China, Japan, Australia, and beyond. And this was on the tails of Rifts Europa. So we're starting to expand out to the rest of the world. And yeah, so we'll kind of see what happens there. I don't have much to say about Rifts because I don't really know Rifts super well. It's definitely one of the it's definitely the biggest setting that I know the least about. I think between like places like China and Japan, we might see some more like martial artist type stuff. Like martial artist type stuff for like Rifts and stuff. Maybe some like from what the research I did, there is some more like high tech stuff that's happening in Japan. That might be kind of brought out more, and give more character options for like a Japanese type style of gameplay. As far as the world's concerned, as far as like the in-game setting is concerned. But honestly, I don't know enough about it to really make any sort of like super big predictions. One of the things I did also read is that it might be like Australia might be more of a bigger horror area. And be more like I don't know, like a Mad Max type situation. So that might happen. Might see more things like that for that area. But I honestly don't. I don't really know Rifts well enough to really say anything. That's just based on like some light research that I did. So if you have any more information or insight to that, please do let me know and share in the comments. Let's see here. Metal Maniac says, I want another Savage Pathfinder player book. I don't think we will get it, but I want it. I mean, I always like getting more player books and stuff, but honestly, I felt like the past two have been a bit light for a book, especially the last one. I don't know how much more there is for them to do. At least from Pathfinder 1, I have heard that they're going to be starting to work with Pathfinder 2nd edition stuff. They got some permission to start working with Pathfinder 2nd edition stuff to bring that in. But I don't really know. Mark Campbell says it's hard to start with Savage Rifts. It's like starting in the middle. He's been playing Rifts since 1989, so I was super excited about Savage Worlds been on it. Yep. No, I think the people have definitely been very excited about Rifts. It's just I don't think it's just quite my personal cup of tea. That's all. But at the same time, I know that if I do want to go play it, it probably won't take much for me to learn because it's still just based off Savage Worlds and then just some additional options on top of it. So, and I actually do have some Rifts books, but they're for the previous edition, deluxe edition. So I haven't really been touching them because I'm like, it's technically for a different edition. Yeah. So someday I'll probably get the books, but it's definitely not high on my list of like the games I really want to play. Pinnacle says kangaroo mounts. yeah, get some kangaroo mounts for your Australia area. Australia. All right, so after Rifts, we also have some more information about ETU. As everyone said in the chat, ETU 2, also known as ETU Fresh Blood. This is something they've confirmed is going to be coming in 2026. Now, the people who have the rights to East Texas University is actually 12 to midnight. Now, Fresh Blood or New Blood, I think is also seen like New Blood. It's going to be a full SWADE update. So we're gonna have a new book with a full feature set for SWADE, and we're also gonna get a new plot point campaign. We've heard some details on like what is going to be happening inside the world. So they're trying to get it far enough away from the timeline of the original setting, so that enough stuff's happened that it feels fresh and new, and like kind of like enough time's gone by for there to be a reset. There's a new president. There's new people, new townspeople that are taking over different things. So like they're trying to get that whole like a reset. Long enough time for there to be a big reset between the first adventure and the second one. Now, since ETU, we have still seen things that happen in Pine Box, specifically Pine Box Middle School, and we've also seen with Pine Box Middle School, we've seen a kind of like a change in obviously it's kids on bikes fighting on monsters, not college students, but it seems to be to me that like kids on bikes or Pine Box Middle School is a stepping stone for them to kind of figure out the new updates they want to make to how the ETU 2 should feel. I think maybe the exams mechanic is going to change. I think it has to somewhat because of the way the scholastics rule is. But even from like how the updates to the for SWADE were released, I think they're going to release a new version for how to do exams, and how to the whole like balance between like schoolwork and fighting monsters. I think that take might be updated to kind of help with getting that feeling across. I also think there's going to be more updates for things like to keep the game in line with things that are in the horror companion for SWADE, and maybe adopt more of a like later, more narrative approach to the horror rather than just a more like fighting approach. I feel like my players specifically, and I don't think it's definitely not all players, but my players have to take a more like active like combativeness to it, rather than like we're gonna fight this stuff, instead of like, hey, we're college students, we're gonna be scared. So I think there's gonna be some updates in it to kind of help with that. That's what I'm hoping for. Help kind of put perspective onto the player so that they understand that there is this stuff is scary. You have limits to what you can do. You need to research this stuff. You can't just go in there with what you think you know. Those kind of things. So looking forward to that. And hopefully I'm looking forward to seeing all the changes they make to update ETU for modern day for SWADE. So looking for that for sure. Let's see here. Next up, Doomguard. So Doomguard is actually a board game. And we know that it's gonna be coming out later this year. It's gonna be shipping sometime this summer. It's actually from last year, so we already know what's happening. But I think this actually gives us some insight into what's going to be happening in the future. Something that they did say on their website, Pinnacle said on their website, is that this game basically needs to succeed for them to do more board games in the future. And they specifically called out things like 50 Fathoms and Rippers as candidates for board games if this was successful. I also wonder, based on some information as we get to look at Deadlands, I also wonder if maybe new board games are on their way for Deadlands, and we'll get to that a little bit more. But I think hopefully we'll see some success with this game, not just in the Kickstarter, which I think was a success, but also in the future. As the games are shipping out, people are actually playing them. Hopefully, maybe retail places will pick them up. I'm guessing that hopefully somewhere inside the box will be some sort of information about Savage Worlds or Necessary Evil or the Doomguard RPG, so that people can maybe take what they have from the board game and actually play a role-playing game from it. And it'd be a really good way to kind of expose people's knowledge of Savage Worlds through board games, right? It's like, oh, hey, we got this board game, looks really cool. Like, oh, there's a RPG that goes along with it. And there's a little free set of rules, and we can start playing right now with this box. We can play the board game, or we can play an RPG. And I think that'd be really cool. So hopefully that happens, and hopefully this will be successful, and we can see more board game treatments for other types of Savage Worlds settings. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to the big one, which is Deadlands. So Deadlands, this is the 30th anniversary of Deadlands, if you didn't know. So Deadlands originally came out in 1996 in its own system, not related to Savage Worlds. You definitely see some like ties to Savage Worlds, like with using a deck of cards and using bennies, which are poker chips. But it was its own system. Very tactical, very gritty. I shouldn't say gritty. Very, very tactical, very simulationist, I'd say. And that, like I said, it predated Savage Worlds. And actually, one of the things I'm working on right now is actually a video trying to go over the whole 30-year history of Deadlands and all the things that's done and everything. But yeah, so there's a lot of things that Deadlands is 30 point being is at 30 years this year of Deadlands. And so they're doing a lot of things this year to celebrate 30 years of Deadlands. The first thing that we know is they announced there is going to be a new adventure for Deadlands that is going to feature a, quote, legendary bloodsucker. I think we can all agree that the world's most legendary bloodsucker, which is actually the quote, it's Dracula, right? Like, it has to be Dracula. If it's not Dracula, I don't know who the most legendary bloodsucker is if it's not Dracula. And the funny part is actually that Dracula was written about shortly after the time, like I think like within 20 years of the time period that Deadlands takes place in. So I think Deadlands takes place in like the mid 80s. I think Dracula was like late the mid 80s of 1800s, so 1880s, and then Dracula was like in the late 1890s, I believe. So close to that time period. But I think what we're going to see is actually a adventure that's going to be more focused on like more of a gothic horror type deal within the Deadlands universe. Now, I will also say though that we also know there's going to be a new region book, and usually the region book that comes out takes place in the same. That's where the plot point campaign happens. So that plot point campaign happens in the same place where this region book comes out. And I can't remember if someone said this specifically, because I feel like someone did, but I'm not positive. But I believe the region book is going to be, where is it? I wrote it down. I can't remember. The Great Basin, I think is what it's called. Yeah, here. The Great Basin. So we have the Abominable Northwest, covering like the Washington, Oregon area. And there was a book that was about the Great Basin, which is like Salt Lake City. But that was in the previous edition with Reloaded. Whereas this is going to be, update for SWADE essentially. And post Cackler, post Morgana effect, all that stuff. So, and I actually don't think that, based on what I know about it, because I unfortunately, this is also, again, an area of Deadlands I'm not too familiar with. But my understanding is that this is where like the center of ghost rock technology is. So really like thing like steampunky stuff, or like steampunk heavy influence and vibes. And I actually don't think that would be totally out of place for a character like a Dracula like character to have an adventure there. Make it more gothic horror, maybe like steampunk gothic horror type vibe. So I think that's definitely a possibility. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. I think that'd be pretty sweet. Maybe something more akin to, not to like, I don't want to make too strong of a connection, but something that's more akin to like a Deadlands version of Castle Ravenloft, but in the proper world setting. So I think that'd be pretty fun. Again, I think some of this information I may have actually read somewhere or heard somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure. This is some of these things are just like guesses and maybe influenced by things I may have heard somewhere. Yeah, let's see here. Is there anything else I want to mention? That they did mention and said that for sure that Deadlands will appear in more than just tabletop role-playing games this year. as much as I want that to be a video game, because if people did not know, there was actually a video game being produced for Deadlands at one point, many years ago, like 20 plus years ago, that did get canceled. So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that we get one someday. But I'm not I'm not holding my breath on that. There was a Deadlands board game at one point. I can't remember the name of it right now at the top of my head right now. Battle of something, I think. I want to say Blood Gulch, but that's Halo. But there is supposed to be something else in Deadlands other than tabletop role playing games. So I'm hoping that is something like something we haven't seen in a long time at the very least. We've seen comic books, we've got our dime novels reprinted and everything. So I'm hoping it's something new or something that we haven't seen in a long time, like a board game or audio book, audio drama, or TV or movie, or something like that. That would be really fun to see. But I think my guess is that it's going to be a board game. So, but yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll also get the Deadlands Dark Ages delivery stuff. So I'm hoping we'll get Lost Colony soon, and then we'll also get Deadlands Dark Ages. I think we get Deadlands Dark Ages this year. That'd be very exciting to get. We've been waiting for Deadlands Dark Ages for so long, so I'm really hoping we get that stuff. What else was there? Yeah, I mentioned that I'd like to see more game stuff. They started using in Deadlands Dark Ages, they started using what they called, I think they call it Fast Forge, their terrain pieces that you can build. And I think that actually will help them create more games in the future. And actually, with that, if you're not familiar, there was and you probably should be, but it sounds fine. There was a miniatures game for Deadlands that also predated Savage Worlds called the Great Rare Wars, and it actually was the starting point for Savage Worlds originally. And I think it would be cool to kind of bring that back, to bring a Deadlands miniatures game back into play, and using Fast Forwards to create the terrain area, and then bring in different minis and stuff to start having little miniature games, kind of bringing Deadlands back to its roots in a sense. So I think that'd be pretty exciting. Let's see here. I'll go back to our comments because I'm not looking at them real quick. Let's see here. Wow, I missed a whole bunch. So some comments about Pathfinder. Some races and occult classes would be nice for Savage Pathfinder. Also, one thing about Kingmaker, they said they are converting the deluxe 2E version, so that's good. Cool, great. The most up-to-date version of Kingmaker is what they're migrating. That's cool. And Savage Pathfinder is becoming my favorite method of running D&D like games, so I just want more. It's also fair. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. What most people are saying. I think I honestly, this is actually part that's a little sad for me, is that I haven't seen much use of the fantasy companion, which is funny because I feel like that was the most popular companion that people were looking, maybe beyond the sci-fi companion, one of the ones they're looking forward to the most. But because it's Savage Pathfinder, I feel like people really aren't really utilizing it a whole lot, unless they're playing in a fantasy game. Which even most of the fantasy settings that are being done by third-party publishers don't need the fantasy companion. They say, hey, you don't need the core rulebook, which I'm pro. So I hope people are using it, because I think there is some good stuff in there, but I think you really just need to use the fantasy companion for your own games. But again, a lot of people are just using Savage Pathfinder instead. All right, where'd my mouse go? There it is. John Doom, when it comes about, obviously it's Strahd. That's the most legendary bloodsucker. Based on our experience with Deadlands and Rippers. And actually, I did see one, I'll say, theory that bringing in Dracula could be the first step into reintroducing systems that were like we had in Rippers. Or maybe even reintroducing Rippers, right? Because it happened in the Victorian era, which, if I remember correctly, I believe the Victorian era was in the late 1800s, similar to when Deadlands is happening. So there's no reason that Rippers, there might be some in-world reasons, but it'd be cool if it could introduce a crossover between Rippers and Deadlands, or just reintroduce some mechanics from Rippers into Deadlands. so that as like a teaser for actually re-releasing Rippers. That'd be pretty exciting. Let's see here. As John Doom said, like likely guessing board game. Yeah, that's likely. So Vegas says, so for Deadlands, I love Hell on Earth, had Classic and the Reloaded, but I don't have hope for a 2026 book, as they said they have to finish the Lost Colony Adventures. Yeah. I have my brother-in-law also is really wanting Hell on Earth again, and we have not seen an updated Hell on Earth to take care of the Morgana effect. I don't think. And if I'm honest, I actually don't even know if Lost Colony, because Lost Colony for SWADE came out before the SWADE version of Deadlands that had the Morgana effect. So I'm actually not sure how the Morgana effect affects the Lost Colony, or if they kind of include that already, or maybe it doesn't affect it at all. Like maybe at some point the two different timelines actually go back to being the same timeline post certain ages. So we'll see. But both Noir and Hell on Earth have not been updated since Morgana effect. So yeah, I'm curious to see what that happens there. Mark Cable says, "Isn't Deadlands Dark Ages another fantasy setting?" I wouldn't just call it I wouldn't say it's just another fantasy setting. I think it's Deadlands version of fantasy. And maybe I even call it like Western fantasy, like cowboys and such, but fantasy and stuff. As much as like as much as Lost Colony is like science fiction, or is it called space Western? Yeah, space Western. So I think it's definitely going to be more as Metal Maniac says, maybe more medieval horror, see a little more scary and stuff, more focus on that kind of stuff. More fear is going to be involved, much more like a typical Deadlands setting, with different, with magic. I guess there's magic in other ones, so it doesn't really help at all. But Merlin's there, and King Arthur is around, and there's druids and all this other stuff. So we're definitely going deeper into like Arthurian legend and getting those kind of things. And there is going to be, I'm not sure how I feel about this, if I'm honest, but there is going to be a gun, a 6-shooter that time travels all the way back to Deadlands Dark Ages. So either way, I'm super excited for it because I've been waiting for this since 2019. So yeah. Let's see here. Again, for John Doom, Deadlands different incarnations. I'm guessing board game. Yeah, that's my guess. John Doom says, I'm literally using Fantasy Companion for a game I'm running tonight. Oh, that's great. What's the game, John Doom? What's the setting? Is it your own setting? Let me know. And then, yeah, give us Rivers back. Yeah, so I think that's my current guess on what's happening with Deadlands, or it's Deadlands, and my guess is on like what's happening this year. One thing I didn't actually mention is I also think I heard, I think it was from like Gen Con last year, there was talks that there is going to be a starter set, which that is like one of the things I've been wanting to happen, is a starter set, and I think it's going to be a starter set for Deadlands. Like it's going to focus on Deadlands. I could be wrong. If it somehow was able to encompass like all the different settings or genres, that'd be sweet. But I feel it's going to be Deadlands focused, and I think that kind of supports the idea that we might see a Deadlands core rule book that has SWADE rules and core rules all combined. I'm really hopeful that that's what we see, but I don't know for sure. Metal Maniac says, for us that don't know the setting, what is the Morgana effect? Thank you for asking. So the Morgana effect is so in world. It's an in world. How is this? It's an in world retcon. In the original Deadlands books, the Civil War doesn't really ever end. It basically goes into a Cold War, and then the Confederacy is just around. Like, they do still abolish slavery because they needed to in order to get backing from England and not England, France, and maybe England. Maybe it was England and France. So they needed to like, they get rid of slavery and everything, but it never really sat well with a lot of people. And so the team at Pinnacle decided to do an in-game effect that basically rewrote history. And so it's an in-game, in setting, I should say, an in-world magical effect that is caused by Morgan Le Fay, who's like brought forth from the Dark Ages of Deadlands Dark Ages, and into the present, but into the present day of Deadlands, the Weird West, and it changes the timeline, meaning that, and the timeline change that happens is that the war does go for longer. So the Civil War does go for longer, but the Confederacy is defeated. And so now going forward from Deadlands with the Weird West for SWADE and forward, the Confederacy does not exist. At least that's my understanding of it. Whereas it did before. And so that's the Morgana effect. So basically that like something happened with Morgana and the Cackler, who is Morgana and Morgan Le Fay. Sorry, I get those two confused for some reason. And the Cackler, and that all happens because of that change. And so there's a change basically in world that's a retcon of all the stuff that happened previously, to fix the timeline so that the Confederacy no longer exists. Hopefully that helps. That fixes that. Garcia says, I want a science fantasy companion like Thundar or Numenera crossing genres. I don't know much about those two settings, so I can't really speak to that. I will say I feel like we have enough sci-fi settings in Savage Worlds, but maybe not one that fits the profile you're looking for. I don't know enough about those settings to really give you anything. Yeah, never enough sci-fi. Got it. My apologies. But for those who don't know the Morgana effect, I will say just go read up on it just to give you get some better understanding of it. If you have the core rulebook for Deadlands, it does talk about it to kind of explain like what the Morgana effect is, and I think Shane even talked about like why they did it like that. So yeah, go for it. Kirsty says we don't have the flavor of sci-fi I want. Okay, can you give me some different cultural type things that I might know that I can maybe give a recommendation on? Because honestly, there is just so many different kind of settings for Savage Worlds that they're, even if you can't find the exact thing you're looking for, you might find something that's like, because honestly, like when we were looking for anything, like it's hard to find something exactly like we want unless it is literally exactly what we want. Like if you want to play Fallout, well, someone has done a fan version of Fallout, that kind of thing. I will say the only sci-fi I have on my shelf really is Starbreaker, and The Last Parsec, and I have Con Cluster, so I have Con Cluster too, so that could help as well. Science fantasy, not sci-fi. Okay, science fantasy. I'll think about that. Battle Lords. Yeah, I wasn't sure if Battle Lords would be considered savage fantasy. There is like magic involved, sort of, but it's also just like super gritty, and depending on like what we're looking for, I don't know if that would work right. Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know what Numenera is. Starfinder. Okay, Starfinder was the one I was wondering if he's looking for something more like Starfinder. I would love to hear that Paizo would let Pinnacle do a Savage Starfinder. I think that would be really, really cool because the setting sounds really cool, but I have no desire to play Pathfinder or Starfinder. I don't have any desire to use the Starfinder Pathfinder systems, but I would like to hear more about that. Yeah, so John Doom, Saints and Sinners. So Saints and Sinners, which is Starbreaker. Here, I pull that out real quick. This is my special copy, and here actually we'll get rid of the. There we go. This is my special copy of Saints and Sinners Starbreaker. So since Starbreaker is the name of the setting, Saints and Sinners is this particular book. Knights of Ethereum. Yeah, did Knights of Ethereum actually come out? Did that come out? No, it's Arcanum. Sorry, that's what it was. I can't remember. Not yet. Yeah, okay, I thought so. I was like, I feel like Naruto Arcanum is one of those settings that we've been hearing talks about for years, and it just hasn't come yet. Not that I'm blaming anybody, but yeah. All right. let me see. Make sure that anything. Let me check my notes to see if there's anything else I wanted to mention real quick. Yeah, okay. That's mostly everything that happened. The main things to just keep in mind for this year is that Pinnacle is being aggressive this year. They want to get on this 30-year hype. Like I said, I'm planning on trying to make a video that kind of like covers, broadly speaking, the history of Deadlands, and hopes to like kind of help support, get people interested in Deadlands, and get people interested in the Kickstarters and everything for Deadlands. And this the huge universe that Deadlands is, because it is a large universe with a lot of things, and it's hard to see all the things that that they've done. They've got different, between, you've got what, 5 different settings. We have Dark Ages, Weird West, Noir, Hell on Earth, Lost Colony. Yes, I think 5. Also missing one. We have board games. We have the Doomtown card game. We've got graphic novels. We've got the dime novels. There's like so much going on in the Deadlands universe to know about, and it's really expansive. So hopefully that is a whole bunch of information that you guys can use, and you can keep that in mind and look forward to all the fun stuff that's happening. I am definitely looking forward to a lot of things from the third-party publishers as well. I don't think we have a whole lot of insight, except for the Kickstarters I mentioned earlier. We don't know a whole lot about what's coming out this year. I feel that's pretty typical, that we don't really hear like what's happening this year for certain publishers and stuff. A lot of these people are doing this as a side thing, not as their main job or anything. So we can look forward to hopefully seeing some really cool stuff from third-party publishers as well. I know I'm looking forward to several of the Kickstarters that we listed, and getting some of the Kickstarters from the publishers as well. So look forward to that. Also keep in mind that think about the individuals at Pinnacle. I think one of the things that we've talked about in one of them is that there are several staff members who are dealing with health issues. Jody Black being one of them. So keep them in mind, and we can hope that they heal and are able to stay participating in this fun game that we love. With that, I think that's everything I have on my agenda for today. If you have your own comments or have your own predictions, I want to hear them. What do you think is going to happen this year? What kind of new mechanics are we going to see? What kind of new worlds are we going to explore? What kind of new villains are we going to see? I want to hear about it. Please let me know. And I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you all next week. I don't think it's next week, but I think either next week or the week after, we'll be talking with Doghouse Rules to talk about Occult City. So look forward to that. And yeah, until next time, everybody, stay savage.